It was a rocky month for the North Country's Congresswoman Elise Stefanik. One minute she was about to become UN ambassador. The next she was back in her seat in Congress. Speaker Mike Johnson had to create a new leadership position for her, chair of House Republican leadership. Stefanik says her job there is to coordinate strategy, communication, and passing President Donald Trump's agenda. A poli-sci professor says that plays to her strengths.
So she's shown that she's a good communicator. She has a good eye for issues. And within her leadership positions, she's been able to get people on board and on the same page.
Could that translate into a possible bid for governor of New York? We consider Stefanik's chances on today's Story of the Day.
Support for Story of the Day comes from Morja Wealth Management, serving the North Country for 3 generations. MorjaWM.com. Securities offered through Hightower Securities, LLC, member FINRA, SIPC. Hightower is an SEC-registered investment advisor. And Kinney Drugs, now offering specialized home medical equipment and supplies. Learn more at KinneyHomeCare.com.
Hey, I'm David Sommerstein. It's Tuesday, April 29th. First up, it was almost a month late, but it appears Governor Kathy Hochul and New York State lawmakers have a budget deal. Hochul announced the deal late yesterday afternoon.
We worked through some really challenging issues. We refuse to be drawn into the toxic, divisive politics of the moment.
The state's spending plan includes some of Hochul's key budget priorities. John Campbell reports for the New York Public News Network.
The governor says the budget will be about $254 billion, but it'll include plenty of policy items that have little to do with spending, like a plan to prohibit public school students from using their smartphones during the school day. That's been a priority for the governor.
This budget is far more than a financial document. It's a declaration of our shared values.
Hochul says her office will finalize budget legislation in the coming days. Lawmakers are expected to begin voting later this week. The budget was due before April 1st. Since then, lawmakers have passed short-term extensions to keep the state funded. In Albany, I'm John Campbell for the New York Public News Network.
As a part of the deal, Hochul and lawmakers struck a compromise on her push for restrictions on wearing masks. The deal would create a new legal charge if someone wears a mask with the intent of concealing their identity while committing a separate crime. Hochul has been pushing for mask restrictions since images of masked anti-Israel protesters went viral last year. But some lawmakers raised concern about the possibility of biased enforcement. A federal prosecutor in Albany says he'll sue telecom companies in a bid to get them to monitor users' messages to crack down on child sex predators. Jimmy Vilkind has that story for the New York Public News Network.
Interim U.S. Attorney John Sarcone says he wants companies to monitor users' messages for language that could indicate predation.
This has got to really come to some kind of a head, and the only way to do that is to drag one of these big companies into federal court, let them fight it, and be humiliated publicly.
Justin Harrison of the New York Civil Liberties Union says personal communications are protected by the U.S. Constitution.
There are very serious privacy, Fourth Amendment, First Amendment problems with all of this.
Sarcone has been in his job for 5 weeks and has never worked as a prosecutor before. In Albany, I'm Jimmy Vilkind for the New York Public News Network.
Even after returning to House leadership this month, Elise Stefanik is already reportedly weighing another move, running for governor of New York next year. She would face serious headwinds. Midterm congressional elections tend to swing against the sitting president's party, and a Republican hasn't won statewide office in New York since 2002. But Syracuse University professor Joshua Dar says if anyone can do it, it's Stefanik. Dar studies local news, political polarization, and campaign strategy at SU. He told Champlain Valley reporter Kara Chapman that even in a state like New York, governors' races can be wild cards.
We can look at Virginia and New Jersey, which will take place later this year, as, canaries in the coal mine for presidential support. We've already had a few special elections that arguably spooked Stefanik and Republicans into keeping her in her seat. But I don't know that we can say without a doubt that governor's races follow that same pattern. She's shown herself to be a good communicator. I think she's been probably more conservative on the national level than you'd want a New York gubernatorial candidate to be. But I also hesitate to put any broad rules on how governor's elections happen because they are their own animal within each state.
Communication, like we've been talking about, is one of Stefanik's strengths. Do you think the right Republican message and messenger can win New York? And have you thought about what that message could be?
Yeah, I think the answer is yes. The Republican can win the New York governorship. I think New York shifted farther right than any other state in 2024, if I'm correct. I think it was an almost 11-point shift. Now, that doesn't mean it was close. But it was at the presidential level much closer. And usually if people are open to something at the presidential level, they would also be open to it at the state level. Nationalization of politics today means that her fate is tied to Trump's. And if Trump becomes less popular, that will make it harder for her. I think an economy-focused message that appeals to upstate interests, that's where, northern, central, that's where she's going to be strongest. And then shaves margins off of what Democrats usually do in the city is plausible because that's what Trump did to move the state 11 points right. She can probably do a more New York specific message about jobs and farming and any number of factors that she's worked on. And in doing so, maybe shave another couple points off it. And then it's a close race. And then one mistake or one scandal or one story can push it even further.
So she's a pretty popular incumbent. She's won each of her 6 elections by double-digit margins. Aside from, messaging upstate, what do you think those results say about how she might fare in New York State at large, like where she can make inroads?
She's held it. She hasn't gotten serious challengers. And she's shown herself to be someone who can appeal to that district enough. I think a lot of the things that would work there, I think she'll speak the language of certainly the western portion of the state, maybe the central part. There's also a real sense in which you do need to win enough in New York City. And there's a playbook for that, as I've said, from what Trump was able to do there. She's probably got a good sense of what might work there from her work within National Republican Party politics. And she can tailor the message to the location, and she doesn't have to win New York City, but she has to probably improve on Trump and his margins. And she doesn't, she needs to run up the score upstate and pushing messages that work in either region, which I don't know what they are yet, but based on her political history, she will probably be able to figure them out. I'd give her a decent shot as Republicans go in New York State.
Josh, we've hit all of the main points I was hoping to hit, but is there anything else that you want to add or anything in particular that you think is important to emphasize about what we've been talking about?
I guess just that if a smart, ambitious, well-connected, well-supported politician like Elise Stefanik is thinking about the governor's race, she thinks she can win it. And let's not get caught up in the way New York State used to vote when it was the state that shifted the farthest right in the country in 2024. So it's interesting from that perspective to see if that was a one-off or to see if some more can be built on that from the Republican side of things. But like I said, governor's races are just their own thing, and it'll be entertaining regardless.
That was Joshua Dar. He's a Syracuse University professor who studies political polarization and campaign strategy. He spoke with Kara Chapman. We have more news all the time on our website, ncpr.org. Music today by Lost in Beijing of Keen and Michael Hart and Ramon Vasquez of Malone. I'm David Summerstein, North Country Public Radio.